I thought I had it all. Power, wealth, Amelia by my side.
We were on top of the world together.
My empire was growing, my future clear. We'd built this life from the ground up, and I could see the next few decades unfolding in front of me. I was untouchable, or so I thought. The phone call came in the middle of the night. It was an unknown number, but I picked up anyway. My mind had already been racing, as it often did after long days of meetings and deals, but I wasn't ready for what followed. "Ethan, it's Jake," the voice said. "You need to hear this." Before I could ask what he meant, I heard it. Amelia. Her laughter, soft but unmistakable, followed by another voice I knew too well. "Matthew." "You should have seen his face when he handed over the contract," Amelia said, laughing again. "He thinks he owns the world." My heart dropped. It was as if the ground had been ripped from under me. I stayed silent, my mind struggling to catch up with the words that were slowly seeping into my brain. "You should have seen his face when I told him I was leaving," Matthew added, smug as ever. That was it. I didn't need to hear more. I ended the call and stared at the wall, feeling the walls of my perfect life crash down around me. Amelia, my fiancée, the woman I trusted, the one I thought would be by my side forever. And Matthew, a man I'd considered a friend. How could they do this to me? I dialed her number. My hands were shaking, but I forced my voice to stay steady when she picked up. "Amelia," I said, my voice like ice. "Where are you?" There was a long pause before she spoke, and when she did, her voice sounded different. "Ethan, I cut her off. "I heard everything. Don't even try to explain." I'm sorry," she whispered, but I could hear the guilt in her voice. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." "Didn't mean for what to happen?" "You betrayed me." "And for what? For him?" I couldn't help the anger rising in my chest. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, sounding like she was about to cry. "Then why did you do it? Why did you choose him?" I gritted my teeth. "Am I not enough?" I heard her breathe out shakily, and for a moment, I thought she might say something that would explain everything. But she didn't. The silence was deafening. "Amelia," I said, my voice breaking through the quiet. "You need to leave, now." "I'm sorry, Ethan," she whispered again. But I was already done listening. I hung up. I sat there for what felt like hours. Everything around me blurred like I was in a fog. The pain was unbearable, but I refused to let it break me. I had worked too hard for everything I had, for everything we had. I wasn't going to lose it to a betrayal like this. Not without a fight. When I finally stood up, I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't let this define me. I would rebuild, smarter, colder, and more determined than ever. Amelia and Matthew had made their choice. But I had a new path now, one that didn't include either of them. I'd make sure my empire thrived, and they'd regret ever crossing me. The day I found out about Amelia's betrayal still haunts me. I'd been suspicious for a while, but I never imagined I'd hear it with my own ears. It happened late one afternoon, after a long day at work. I was walking past the study when I heard voices coming from inside. My first instinct was to ignore it, but then I heard her laugh. That laugh, the one I loved so much. "God, you should have seen his face when he found out about the new deal," Amelia said, her voice full of that smug satisfaction I'd never expected to hear from her. I stopped dead in my tracks. That wasn't normal. That wasn't something you said about your fiancé. I leaned closer, pressing my ear against the door. I should have walked away, but something in me wanted to hear it. I needed to know. "Yeah, he was so sure of himself." Matthew's voice came next, and I felt my stomach drop. "He thinks he's untouchable." I froze. I couldn't breathe. My heart slammed against my chest, but I couldn't pull myself away. "I told him I was done," Amelia continued, like it was some casual conversation, "that I was leaving him for good. I've been telling him for months, but now I feel free. I couldn't believe it." I didn't want to believe it, but I had heard it. Amelia had been with Matthew behind my back. My best friend. My fiancé, together. I felt rage fill me, but there was something colder behind it. It was the understanding that I'd been blind, that I'd trusted them both too much. Amelia had never been the woman I thought she was. I burst into the room, my anger exploding in a way I couldn't control. "Amelia, Matthew!" They both turned, their faces going pale as they saw me standing there. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice low and dangerous. Amelia opened her mouth but didn't say anything. Matthew tried to act calm, like he could talk his way out of this, but I wasn't having it. "I told you it wasn't what it looked like," Matthew started, trying to walk towards me like we were still friends. I stepped back, putting distance between us. "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to do this, not to me." "Not to us," I turned to Amelia. Her eyes were filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. She was no longer the woman I loved. She was just the one who had betrayed me. "You're leaving me for him?" I asked, the words tasting like ash. "How long?" "Ethan, please," Amelia whispered, stepping forward. "I never meant to hurt you. Don't you dare try to justify this. It's over." I could hear the rawness in my own voice, but I didn't care. "I want you gone, now!" Her face crumpled, but there was no sympathy in me. I wasn't the man I used to be. I was shattered, but I wasn't weak. She didn't fight me. She didn't try to beg for more time. She just looked at me, like she was already saying goodbye in her head. "I'm sorry, Ethan, I really am," she said, her voice breaking. I watched her pack her things, but the emptiness inside me only grew. I wasn't angry anymore. I was hollow. I turned to Matthew. "You can leave too, before I have you thrown out." He opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything. He just turned and walked out, his face hardening into something I couldn't recognize. The door clicked behind him, and for a moment, everything was still. I stood there, the weight of it all pressing down on me. Jake, my best friend, called a few hours later. I didn't pick up the first time, but he called again. "Ethan, man, I know what happened. Are you okay?" His voice was careful, like he wasn't sure how to approach me. "I don't know," I muttered, sitting down on the couch. My hands were shaking. "I don't know how to feel." Jake's voice softened. "You're gonna get through this. We'll fix this. You're not alone." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because the truth was I felt alone. I had lost not just Amelia, but a part of myself. Everything I had built with her, every dream, every plan, it was all gone. "I'm not sure I want to fix this," I finally said. "I don't know if I can." "I get it, man," Jake replied. "But I'm here, always. We'll figure this out." I hung up, but I didn't feel any better. Jake's words didn't change the emptiness I felt inside. Revenge? Maybe. But before I could even think about getting back at them, I needed to understand my enemy first. I needed to understand why they had done this, what made them turn on me, and when I found out, when I finally knew, that's when the real fight would begin. I hadn't realized how deep the betrayal had cut until I saw the results. My empire, the one I'd spent years building, was crumbling. It didn't just affect my personal life, it tore into everything I worked for, the business I had sacrificed so much to grow. And Amelia and Matthew had a hand in every piece of it. I was sitting in my office one morning, staring at the numbers on the screen. Our biggest clients were pulling away, one by one. It was happening so fast I could barely keep up. I couldn't figure out where it all started. But then I remembered, it started with them. "Ethan, we need to talk." Jake's voice came through the phone line, shaking me from my thoughts. I didn't have the energy to be surprised. "What now?" I muttered. "You know things are slipping, right?" Jake said. "This isn't just about you and Amelia. This is bigger." I ran a hand through my hair. "Yeah, I know. I've been watching it happen. What the hell am I supposed to do now, Jake?" "You don't need to go down with it," he replied, trying to sound reassuring. "But you need to act fast. I can't fix this. It's falling apart too quickly." The words tasted bitter as I said them. There was a pause on the other end. "You can't keep staring at the wall, Ethan. You have to move." I wasn't sure if I was listening to him or just letting the words bounce around in my head. I'd been working nonstop for days, but nothing seemed to work. I couldn't stop them. Amelia and Matthew were taking my clients, my contacts, my resources, and there was nothing I could do. I ended the call, but I didn't feel any better. I walked out of my office, my mind clouded with frustration and helplessness. That's when I ran into her. "Ethan?" Catherine's voice broke through my haze. I hadn't seen her much since our first meeting a few weeks ago. She was sharp, driven, and way too ambitious for my liking, but in that moment she was a lifeline I didn't know I needed. "Yeah?" I responded, trying to focus. "I've been following your company's situation," she said, stepping closer. "And I think I can help." I raised an eyebrow. "Help? How?" "I know people, Ethan. I know the game." She looked me straight in the eyes, confident. And I know what you're up against. You need someone who can get you back on track. I wasn't sure what to make of her offer. I was so far down I didn't think anyone could pull me out. But something about Catherine's confidence was impossible to ignore. Maybe she could help, maybe she couldn't, but I didn't have many options left. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Let's see what you've got. She smiled, sharp and calculating. Good. We'll start making some moves, get your clients back, and rebuild from there. I was too tired to be cautious. Fine, I repeated. But if you screw me over, I'll make sure it's the last mistake you ever make. She just smirked. I don't screw people over, but I don't lose either. We spent the next few days strategizing, and slowly I felt like I was regaining control. She wasn't just talk. Catherine actually knew how to play the game. We started reaching out to old contacts, rebuilding the bridges that had been burned. I worked harder than I ever had, staying up late, going through every email, every lead, every deal. But even with Catherine's help, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. My mind kept drifting back to the betrayal, to the emptiness Amelia had left behind. I couldn't let go of the fact that Matthew, the man I'd trusted, had been the one to take everything from me. I don't know how you're handling this, Ethan, Sarah said to me one evening. Jake's wife had been a voice of reason in the chaos. She wasn't afraid to speak bluntly, and somehow I respected that. Handling what? I asked, not even looking up from the reports in front of me. The fall. Your empire. It's a mess. And I get it. You're angry, but you can't keep fighting ghosts. I set the reports down, meeting her gaze.
What do you mean by that?
You keep focusing on Amelia and Matthew, Sarah said, crossing her arms. I get it. They hurt you. But you can't keep drowning in that. You're better than this. You need to move forward, not backward. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I wanted to scream at her, tell her she had no idea what I was going through. But I didn't, because deep down I knew she was right. I was letting them consume me. I don't know how to just let it go, I admitted, my voice quieter than I intended. You don't have to let it go, Sarah replied, her tone softening. Just stop letting it control you. I sat there for a long time, absorbing what she'd said. Sarah wasn't wrong, but it wasn't easy to stop living in the past, to stop letting the betrayal dictate every decision I made. But something inside me clicked. I had to move forward. I had to take back control, not just of my business, but of myself. All right, I said, standing up. Time to get to work. I didn't know if I could ever fully recover from what had happened, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let them ruin me. Not now, not ever. Revenge became my obsession. It consumed me. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't just move on. Matthew had taken everything. My pride, my empire, my fiancée. He thought he could walk away from me unscathed, but he was wrong. The longer I stewed in my anger, the clearer my plan became. I was going to make him pay, and not just pay, but watch as I took back everything he'd stolen from me, piece by piece. I was sitting in my office late one night when Catherine walked in. Her presence as sharp as her business acumen. You've been at this for hours. You need to rest. I don't need rest, I replied, not even looking up from the contract I was drafting. I need to win. Catherine paused, her voice cool but understanding. I get it. But you can't run on empty forever. You have to think this through, Ethan. There's no room for mistakes. I nodded, ignoring the exhaustion tugging at my eyes. I don't have a choice. I can't let him get away with this. She sat down, crossing her legs. You're thinking too short term. Matthew's already ahead of you. You need to outplay him. I met her gaze. I know what I'm doing. Do you? She asked, a hint of doubt in her voice. If you want to beat him, you need to understand where he's weak. Right now he's got the connections, but you? You've got something better. What's that? I shot back, already feeling defensive. You've got patience, and you've got me, she said, her tone softer. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture. She was right. I couldn't go in guns blazing. I needed to be smart about this. I needed a strategy that would break him slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left for him to cling to. The next day, I met with Marcus, one of the few businessmen left who could match my drive. He'd always seen me as a threat, and it wasn't lost on me that he was a potential ally now. I needed all the help I could get. Ethan, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair, his fingers steepled. I've been watching you. You're not the same man I once knew. I smiled coldly. People change, especially when they've been wronged. I'm here because I think you've got a plan, Marcus said, his voice low. And I want in. I didn't trust him. Not fully, but I knew how to use him. I need to take down Matthew. I need his clients, his reputation, and I need you to help me do that. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And what's in it for me? You get to watch me destroy him, I replied. And in the process, you'll gain what you've always wanted, his clients, his position. I'll make sure of it. He thought about it for a moment before nodding. Deal, but if you screw me over, Ethan... I won't, I interrupted. But you might want to keep an eye on your back, Marcus. There's always someone ready to take your place. After the meeting, I felt the familiar buzz of a plan taking shape. But there was something else, too. Something I hadn't expected. I couldn't help but feel a certain satisfaction in knowing that Matthew was already losing. Slowly but surely, he was slipping. And I was going to be the one to push him over the edge. Days turned into weeks, and I kept my eyes on the prize. But betrayal came in ways I hadn't anticipated. Emma, my new assistant, was supposed to be a small piece in the puzzle. But she turned out to be a lot more. You're working too much, she said one evening, walking into my office without knocking. You need to slow down. I didn't have time to slow down. But I appreciated the concern. I don't have time for that right now. She leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. Look, Ethan, I don't know what you're planning, but I've been watching you. You're starting to make mistakes. I glanced up at her, surprised. What do you mean? You're burning bridges and you're doing it fast. You need to focus on what matters or you'll lose everything again, including your mind, she said, her eyes holding something I couldn't place. I sat back in my chair, considering her words. I hadn't expected Emma to be this perceptive. I'd hired her for her skills, but she was proving to be more than just an assistant. And what do you suggest I do?
Stop chasing revenge for a second, she replied, her voice quiet but firm.
Take a breath. You're better than this. I looked at her, really looked at her. I wasn't sure if she was trying to help me or warn me. But one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let me self-destruct without a fight. I'm not just chasing revenge, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. I'm rebuilding, and I won't stop until Matthew feels everything he's done to me. Emma didn't respond immediately. She just nodded, her gaze steady. Just don't let it consume you. Revenge isn't a road you want to travel too far down. I didn't want to hear it, but deep down I knew she was right. I had to be careful. I couldn't let my anger blind me. Not again. Thanks, Emma, I said finally, my voice softer than I intended. I'll keep that in mind. And as the days dragged on, I realized something important. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And in this game, only the strongest would make it to the end, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I never expected my obsession with revenge to be so consuming, but here I was, living for the next move, the next strike, the next step in bringing Matthew down. I couldn't think about anything else. For the first time in my life, I was single-minded, fueled by anger and the desire to make him feel everything I had felt. But somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing the small changes happening around me. It started with Catherine. She had been my business partner for a few months now, and at first I thought she was just another sharp mind to help me execute my plans. But as we spent more time together, I began to realize there was more to her than I had anticipated. She was smart, driven, and, more often than not, ruthless. But what struck me most was her confidence. She was always 2 steps ahead, and that pushed me in ways I hadn't expected. One night, after a particularly long day of strategizing, I caught her watching me. You look like you're about to bite someone's head off, she said, leaning against the desk, arms crossed. Matthew's just 1 step ahead of me. Every time I think I've got him, he gets the upper hand, I replied, irritation lacing my voice. I hate feeling like I'm losing. Catherine's lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't comforting. It was knowing.
You're not losing, Ethan. You're just playing the wrong game.
I raised an eyebrow. Explain! She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a low tone. You're focused on him. You need to stop thinking about Matthew as the enemy and start thinking about him as a stepping stone. You're wasting energy trying to destroy him when you could be using that energy to build something new, something bigger. I didn't know what it was, but something shifted in me. The idea of focusing on my own future rather than just the destruction of his felt liberating. I had spent so much of my time consumed by him, but Catherine was right. I could do more than just take from him. I could build. I could create something he couldn't even touch. So, what are you saying? I asked, leaning forward. That I should forget about Matthew? No, she said, her eyes narrowing. Just stop letting him control you. Let him burn himself out. The best way to deal with someone like him is to stop reacting. Let him make mistakes. We'll capitalize on them. You've got the tools, Ethan. You just have to stop looking at the destruction and start looking at the opportunity. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. It was small, but it was there. All right, I said, standing up and stretching. Let's play this the right way then. Catherine's smile was cold but genuine. That's what I like to hear. We spent the next few weeks turning our focus inward. We strengthened the foundation of my business, reached out to old clients, and created new opportunities. For the first time since the betrayal, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for Matthew to make the next move. I was moving forward on my own terms, but just when I thought I had everything under control, the tables turned. I was in a meeting when I got the call. It was from one of my remaining business contacts. Ethan, you need to look into this. Matthew's been poaching our clients. I've already lost a couple, and I'm hearing rumors about his next move. I cursed under my breath. Damn it, he's hitting us where it hurts. I ended the call, my heart pounding in my chest. The plan I had worked so hard to put in place was starting to crumble. Catherine had warned me that revenge had a way of backfiring, but I hadn't realized just how deeply Matthew had dug in. I called Catherine immediately. We've got a problem, I said, my voice tight. Matthew's making a move. I need to know what he's up to. Already on it, she replied, her tone calm as always. I've got people keeping an eye on him. He's pushing hard, but he's also making some risky moves. We can use that, I let out a breath. I don't care about the risks. I need to hit him where it hurts. We can't let him get ahead again. You've got it, Catherine said. Let's turn this around. He's not going to win this time. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Matthew was being reckless, and that made him dangerous. I had underestimated him before, but this time, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I spent the next few days digging into Matthew's operations. I found the cracks, small but telling. His business was starting to show signs of strain. He had overextended himself, made promises he couldn't keep, and now it was all coming apart. I couldn't help but feel a little satisfaction at the thought of his empire crumbling. But then again, I had been in his position too. I knew the danger of going too far, of taking on more than you could handle. What's the plan? Catherine asked one night as we went over the details. I leaned back in my chair, looking over the figures, the reports. We let him burn himself out, but we need to be ready to move when he cracks. Catherine nodded, her eyes gleaming with the same intensity that had drawn me to her in the first place. We'll be ready. It felt good to have control again. I wasn't just fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting for a new future, a new beginning. And this time I wasn't going to let anything or anyone stand in my way. But as we moved forward, the realization hit me. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about building something stronger than what Matthew had taken from me. Something that would last, something that would make him regret ever crossing me. I should have known Matthew wouldn't go down without a fight, but what he did next, what he dared to do, took everything to a whole new level. I had been waiting for the moment when he'd slip, when the cracks in his empire would widen enough for me to move in. But I didn't expect this. It started with a call. It was from Jake, of all people. Ethan, you need to hear this. Matthew's threatening to go public with everything. All your dirty laundry. He's got it all. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do you mean, everything? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. He's saying he's got proof. That'll ruin you. Your business, your reputation. Gone. I didn't answer right away. My mind was racing. I'd never made a secret of my aggressive tactics in business, but nothing illegal. Nothing that could destroy me. At least that's what I thought. Where is this coming from? I finally managed to ask, trying to stay calm. He's been gathering info for months, Ethan. He's got it all. The call ended. I stood there in my office, the weight of what he was threatening sinking in. Matthew was desperate. This was a last-ditch effort to regain control, something to destroy me once and for all. I didn't want to admit it, but he had me cornered. I couldn't just let him burn me down, and I wasn't going to play fair anymore. I turned to Catherine. Matthew's making his move, I said, trying to hide the edge in my voice. He's got something on me, and I don't know what it is. Catherine's eyes sharpened as she listened. We've got to beat him to it. If he thinks he can ruin you, he's already lost. I couldn't stop myself. He thinks he's got the upper hand. I need to make sure he's the one who falls. Don't do anything reckless, Catherine warned. I know you're angry, but if you lash out blindly, it'll destroy everything, I scoffed. You think I don't know that? But Catherine didn't back down. We'll do this together. We need to hit him where it counts. Let's be smart about this. That's when I started to see it. The plan. The long game. Matthew's pride would be his downfall, and I would make sure he walked right into it. I made my first move by leveraging his own weaknesses. He had always prided himself on being untouchable, believing no one could challenge him. But that was his ego talking. He was burning through money, making reckless investments and borrowing too much. I knew how to use that. It wasn't long before I had Catherine digging into his finances, and soon enough we found the cracks. Loans he couldn't repay, deals he had overpromised, and clients he had lied to. He was drowning, and all it took was a nudge to send him under. You sure about this? Catherine asked one night, her voice low. Do it. Make sure his people see it. Let him think he's in control for just a little while longer. Then we pull the rug out. Matthew's desperation showed through in his next move. He tried to run a smear campaign, threatening to expose everything I'd done, my strategies, my business deals, and my personal life. He thought it would be enough to break me. But what he didn't realize was that it was already too late for him. I waited. I didn't have to act right away. All I had to do was let him dig deeper, let him continue to make mistakes. The more he pushed, the more desperate he became. And then finally I moved. The news broke a week later. Matthew's empire started to unravel just as I had predicted. The clients pulled out. His investors demanded answers. The loans he had stretched out were called in, and he couldn't cover them. His business was bleeding, and all I had to do was sit back and watch. I did it, Catherine said, smiling as she leaned over my desk. It's happening. I looked at her, a mixture of satisfaction and something else I couldn't place. Good. This is just the beginning. But even as I watched Matthew's empire fall apart, a part of me hesitated. I had won, yes, but at what cost? His greed had brought him down, but had I gone too far? Was I just as guilty of betrayal as he was? I pushed the thought aside. It didn't matter. Not now, do you feel it? Catherine asked, her voice softer now. You've done it. You've taken control back. I didn't answer her at first. I stared at the screen, watching the reports come in. Matthew was finished. But as I sat there, I felt that flicker of doubt again. Had I really won, or had I become the very thing I despised? A man who would destroy everything for the sake of his own pride? I don't know if I feel like a winner, I finally said, my voice low. Catherine studied me for a moment, her expression unreadable. You're not just a winner, Ethan, you're a survivor. And sometimes survival doesn't come without sacrifice. She was right. I had sacrificed a lot to get here. But as Matthew's fall became inevitable, I couldn't help but wonder, had I crossed a line? Was there still a way back for me? Or had I already gone too far? As Matthew watched his empire crumble, I realized one thing. He had underestimated me. But in the end, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. And I would do whatever it took to survive. I never expected the truth to come crashing down like this, especially not from Matthew. But that's exactly what happened. I thought his betrayal was all about power. I thought he wanted to ruin me because of business, because of ambition. But no, it was never just about that. I found out when I least expected it. Matthew was standing in front of me, his eyes more desperate than I'd ever seen. I couldn't help but smirk. The mighty had fallen, and I was the one who'd brought him down. You've lost everything, I said, my voice cold. And you still think you can get away with it? Matthew stared at me, the anger in his eyes fading into something else. You don't get it, do you? He said, his voice hoarse. It was never about the business, Ethan. I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. What the hell are you talking about? It was about her, he said, his voice quieter now. Amelia, my chest tightened. The mention of her always had that effect on me, even now. You're telling me you destroyed my life. For her? Matthew nodded slowly, his gaze dropping. I was in love with her, Ethan. I always have been. That's why I did it. I thought if I took everything from you, she'd come to me. I couldn't speak at first. The irony was suffocating. Amelia had chosen him over me, and now here he was confessing that it had all been because of her. It wasn't about business, wasn't about the empire. It was about love, and now, I finally managed. What's left for you? He didn't answer. Instead, he just looked down at the ground, defeated. There was no victory in his eyes anymore. There was just emptiness. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You've lost everything, Matthew. The business, the girl. Hell, even your dignity. He didn't respond. There was nothing left for him to say. But just when I thought it was over, a knock on the door broke the silence. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened it, I found her. Amelia. She stood there, her eyes red from crying. The sight of her brought a fresh wave of anger, but I held it in. I was done with her. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice shaky. Please, Ethan. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. Is this about Matthew? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You're here to tell me how much you regret choosing him over me? She flinched, her eyes watering again. I never meant for things to end up like this, she whispered. I was confused. I thought I was making the right choice, but now I see that I was wrong. I couldn't hold back the laugh that escaped me. You're sorry? After everything you've done? Her face crumpled as she reached for me, but I stepped back. Ethan, please, I know I hurt you, but I was stupid. I love you. I always have, I clenched my fists. You don't get to say that. Not after everything. You've destroyed everything we had. You destroyed me! She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. I was weak. I chose the wrong path. I should have chosen you. I felt something shift inside me, something that wasn't anger. It was regret, yes, but not for her. It was regret for what I had let myself become, someone so consumed by revenge that I'd allowed it to change me. I looked at her, my heart still heavy but not as furious as before. It's too late for us, Amelia. You can't undo what's been done. She shook her head desperately. Please don't say that, please. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll leave Matthew, I'll make it right. But I couldn't be moved. Not anymore. I don't need you back. I need closure. And that's something you can't give me. I stepped away from her, pacing around the room. Matthew's fall had been my victory, but now it felt hollow. I had won everything I thought I wanted, but nothing felt right. Amelia was still kneeling, her face twisted in sorrow. Please, Ethan, you're the only one who can fix this. You're the only one who can make it right. I stopped, my back to her, but my voice was steady. It's not about fixing things anymore, Amelia. It's about moving on. And I'm done. I don't need you. I don't need him. For the first time, I realized how much I'd been holding on to. The anger, the hatred, the need for revenge, it had all been a way to mask the pain. But now I could see it clearly. I turned back to her, my expression unreadable. It's over. For both of us. I could see the pain in her eyes, but I didn't feel the same way anymore. I wasn't the man who had been destroyed by her betrayal. I was different now. Stronger, wiser, but also more at peace. She stood up, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, Ethan, for everything. I nodded, my voice softer. I know, but it's time to let go. As she left, I felt a strange weight lifting off my shoulders. Maybe it was the closure I needed. Maybe it was the final step in my transformation. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure. I was finally free. I wasn't defined by her. Or by Matthew. I was defined by the man I'd become. And that was enough. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen in front of me, watching the reports come in. Everything I had worked for was finally back on track. The pieces had fallen into place. The empire I had lost was reborn, but this time it wasn't just a reflection of my past. It was something entirely new. Something I had built without relying on anyone else. I didn't need Matthew. Didn't need Amelia. And as much as I thought I might feel vindicated, I found I wasn't thinking about them anymore. My mind was consumed with the future Catherine and I were now shaping together. Ethan, you're quiet, Catherine said, breaking my reverie. I looked up, meeting her eyes. She had become more than just a business partner. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped seeing her as a tool for revenge and started seeing her as someone who could help me build something real. I'm thinking, I said, my voice rough with the weight of everything that had happened. I know you've been thinking for a while now, she replied, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. About what? About the next move? Or just about everything? I chuckled, leaning back in my chair. Everything, I guess. It's hard to believe we're here. After everything that's happened, we're finally at the top again. I didn't think it would happen this quickly. Catherine stepped closer, her eyes softening. You've always been capable, Ethan. But you needed to stop focusing on revenge. You needed to focus on this, on building. Anna, she was right. I had spent so much time looking backward, chasing the ghosts of Matthew and Amelia, that I hadn't realized what I was capable of until I finally let go of them. We've done this together, I said, my voice lower. And I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd ever find someone like you. She gave me a look, one I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just a business partner look anymore. It was something deeper. I've learned a lot from you, Ethan, she said quietly. But you've done the hardest part. You let go. I didn't respond immediately. I was still trying to process everything that had changed in the past few months. My empire wasn't just back, it was thriving. But in the process, something had shifted in me. I wasn't the man I had been when this all started. What's next? She asked, breaking the silence. I looked at her, feeling the weight of her question. There was no answer that felt right. I don't know, I admitted. But for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm chasing something. I feel like I'm building something real. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a news update. My heart skipped a beat as I saw the headline, Matthew Walker, once a powerful business tycoon, now scrubbing floors in a local cafe. Matthew, I muttered under my breath, not quite believing it. Catherine leaned over my shoulder, glancing at the screen. Well, looks like he's officially hit rock bottom. I didn't know how I felt about it. I had imagined this moment for so long, thought it would bring me satisfaction. But as I read the details, his wealth gone, his reputation ruined, Amelia nowhere to be found, I felt nothing. I thought about the man I used to be, the man who craved revenge, who wanted to watch Matthew suffer. But now, as I saw him reduced to nothing, I realized something important. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was emptiness. I thought I'd feel something, I said, mostly to myself. But I don't. I've won, but I'm not happy about it. Catherine glanced at me, her expression unreadable. You wanted to take him down, Ethan, and you did. But is that what you really wanted? Or did you just need to see it happen? I looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. I didn't have an answer, but for the first time I realized I had moved on. My past no longer controlled me, and whatever came next, it would be my choice. I think I just needed closure, I said softly. Catherine smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in a long time. And now you have it. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't defined by the destruction I had caused, by the enemies I'd made. I was defined by what I had built, by what I was still building. We spent the rest of the evening in silence, not needing to say much. Everything had changed, and somehow it felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As I looked back at the screen one last time, I couldn't help but feel a quiet pride. Matthew had lost everything, but I had gained something more valuable than any of it: control over my own life. I'd rebuilt my empire. But more than that, I had rebuilt myself, and that, in the end, was all that mattered. I never thought I'd get here. There was a time when I couldn't see past the anger, the betrayal, the need for revenge. I was so consumed by it that I couldn't imagine a life without it. But now, standing at the top of my new empire, I finally understood what it meant to let go. It's strange how life works out. It wasn't just about winning anymore. The power I had now wasn't the same power I'd once sought through destruction. It wasn't about taking from others. It was about building something of my own, something stronger than anything I'd had before. And I knew for the first time that it wasn't because I'd beaten anyone. It was because I'd earned it. Ethan, Catherine's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I turned to her, watching her walk toward me. She had been by my side through everything. She had helped me rebuild, but more than that, she had helped me see a new path. You okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, just thinking. About Matthew? She asked, her tone careful. I chuckled, shaking my head. No, not him. Not anymore. Then what? I looked out at the view from my office. The city spread out below us, just like it had when I first started. The difference now was that it felt real. It felt like it belonged to me, not because I took it, but because I built it from the ground up. I was thinking about how far I've come, I said, my voice low. How much I've changed. Catherine stepped beside me, her gaze following mine. You've done more than come far, Ethan. You've grown. You're not the same person you were when I first met you. I looked at her, grateful for her honesty. I used to think I needed revenge to feel whole, to prove that I was in control. And now, she asked, Now, I realize I never needed to prove anything to anyone but myself, I replied, finally feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I was running on anger, on bitterness, but it's not worth it. I'm better than that. I have something I can be proud of now. Something I built. She smiled at me, her expression soft. You're finally at peace with it, aren't you? I took a deep breath, feeling the tension leave my body. I think I am. It's strange, but I'm not haunted by the betrayal anymore. I don't need to keep looking back, trying to get even. What's the point? Matthew has already lost. And I don't need him to feel what I felt to know I've won. She was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. You know, revenge isn't the only way to make peace with the past. You've learned that now, I nodded. I've learned a lot. I used to think the power was in taking it from others. But now I know it's in creating something that no one can take away. That's where the real power lies. I could see the pride in her eyes as she looked at me, and it made me realize something. You've been with me every step of the way, Catherine. Through all of it. This empire we've built, this is just as much yours as it is mine. She didn't say anything for a moment, but I could see the softness in her eyes as she reached out and placed her hand on mine. I'm glad I was here, Ethan, but this is your victory. I'm just honored to be part of it. I squeezed her hand, feeling a sense of contentment I hadn't known in a long time. It's funny, isn't it? How you spend so much time looking for the one thing that will make everything right, only to realize it was in front of you the whole time. Catherine smiled. What's that? Peace, I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. The whole time I was looking for revenge, for justice, for the perfect ending. But what I needed was just to let go. She looked at me with that knowing look in her eyes, the same look I'd seen countless times as we worked side by side. But this time there was something different. She wasn't just my business partner anymore. She was someone who understood me, who had seen the change in me. You've done the hard part, Ethan, she said. Now you get to live with the peace you've earned. I felt a weight settle in my chest, not from burden, but from relief. I didn't need to chase after anything anymore. I had everything I wanted, not because I had taken it from someone else, but because I had built it. I don't need to prove anything anymore, I whispered, mostly to myself. I'm finally free. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It wasn't filled with tension or anticipation. It was the kind of silence that comes when you found exactly what you were looking for, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. I wasn't the man who had lost everything anymore. I was the man who had built it all back and more. And that was enough.